Baltimore, creating a community that they are calling the Black Wall Street of Baltimore.
WMAR 2 News' Brittany Werner spoke with some of those business owners in North Baltimore about what they're doing and how they're using business to impact the community. She joins us now. Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Mallory and Kelly. Along 25th Street, there are at least 3 blocks full of Black-owned businesses. Some of the owners say their mission is to create a strong economic community, encouraging youth in that community to explore entrepreneurship as well. The Black Wall Street in Baltimore is what business owners have named 3 blocks full of Black-owned businesses in their community.
These are a lot of young entrepreneurs. Original Black Wall Street of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the dollar circulated in the community for over a year.
Ms. Jackie, who owns multiple buildings along 25th Street, comprised of several businesses, says she serviced this community in North Baltimore for around 20 years. And keeping the dollar circulating within the community is a mission they are constantly working to uphold.
You want to learn about hair, or we're going to send you to Blush to talk to Ashley and Blush. There are different things. We can send the young people who want to learn about barbering to Y, to Dre at Y. You want to learn about how to make your shirts and how to produce your brand, we send you to talk to Mike at Screwed.
Marcus Catlett manages Screwed, a unisex clothing brand along that strip. His brother Mike, who owns the store, started the brand.
He's a big believer of not letting a 9-to-5 job define you, and that, you know, you can go out on your own and have your own business and be successful. For other people to see, like, you know, how can all y'all be on the same block and still, like, prosper and all y'all be successful? That it can be done. And like I said, that we are stronger together.
DeAndre Williams is another entrepreneur who owns a clothing brand, WA, and a barbershop connected.
It's just like the Mecca. It's like a Baltimore Rodeo Drive, honestly. You come and you see people that motivate you every day. We're accessible. It makes it a lot easier for a kid to relate and be like, I can do that too.
In addition to a host of other businesses along 25th Street between North Howard and St. Paul Street, there's even a little free library promoting literacy. And on top of owning and managing businesses, Ms. Jackie says through her nonprofit Notre Maison Connects, they are encouraging youth in the community to be entrepreneurs as well.
We work with 18 to 21-year-olds, so we teach them about entrepreneurship. We teach them about unity. We teach them about supporting each other. We're not going to push you down, pull you down. We're going to lift you up.
My message would be just to have discipline. Discipline is a fast track to elevation, and you got to discipline yourself when you're trying to elevate.
Typically in the city of Baltimore, there's a lot of division, but not on Black Wall Street, so we pretty much...
Now, connecting youth in the community to the businesses there is just one way they are giving back to the community, and they're hoping as many more people learn about what they're doing that they will support them as well.
Brittany, anything the community can do to help support these entrepreneurs and their businesses?
Yeah, well, aside from patronizing the many businesses that sit along that strip, you can donate books to the Little Book Library, and they are hosting an event, a toy and coat drive that's coming up in a few weeks. We'll let you know about that. They also have a lot of community events that are going on there where they give back every holiday. So make sure you check out 25th Street, known as the Black Wall Street of Baltimore.
The trillion-dollar question is, should America pay reparations to millions of African Americans for the centuries of slavery that their ancestors endured? As we reported last spring, that issue has been discussed for decades, but only on the fringes of the civil rights movement. In the last several months, it's been gaining increasing prominence in campus protests and debates, in the opinion columns of editorial pages, and in a growing number of city council resolutions. It's a key item on the agenda of the UN Conference on Racism, which opened on Friday in South Africa. In the U.S., the National Coalition for Reparations is making its demands increasingly loud and clear.
Anything we've ever got from America has been as a consequence of struggle, and it will be struggle to get reparations. We have to build a movement that will create the kind of crisis for America that it has no alternative but to give our people what is our right. Uhuru!
That was Omali Yeshitela, one of the more radical speakers. But the demand for reparations is now part of the mainstream. Randall Robinson is head of the human rights group Trans-Africa, which helped in the effort to end apartheid in South Africa.
There's little in the way of dispute that the United States government was complicit in a crime against a section of its own population, that the government benefited from that crime. Cotton exports produce more in the way of foreign exchange earnings than all other American exports put together. That cotton was taxed. It made our country wealthy.
That's something most black Americans were quietly aware of. But the demand to share that wealth has become a rallying cry.
Not until recently have what I call blacks in suits joined this issue. And so now you see major figures from major black institutions now embracing this as a position.
Robinson's talking about institutions like the NAACP and men like Lerone Bennett Jr., the executive editor of Ebony magazine.
Somebody in the media raised the question last night about welfare. We're not talking about welfare, we're talking about back pay.
Bennett was addressing the Chicago City Council in support of a resolution demanding the U.S. Congress address the issue of reparations.
Has any other group anywhere suffered so long and so grievously and received so little in recompense and apologies? Has any other group anywhere bled more and cried more and died more?
The Chicago City Council passed the resolution 46-1, joining similar actions by a number of other U.S. cities. The lone dissenting voice in Chicago was Alderman Brian Doherty, who represents a white immigrant district. He says his constituents had no part of slavery and can't be held responsible. But the issue clearly struck a nerve in Chicago's poorer black neighborhoods, places like Alderman Dorothy Tillman's 3rd Ward.
America owes us a debt. We're here to collect. So those who want to come and help, let them come on. And those who don't get in the way because we're going to run over you.
Ms. Tillman says it was blacks who literally dug the foundations of America.
Certainly America grew off the backs of blacks in terms of free labor. And we're the great nation we are because of that.
The moment you discuss, you raise the idea of reparations, the next question is, reparations from whom?
Well,
and how much?
I think we get reparation from both government and private, from corporate. The Jewish community have received reparation from all over the place, and they have done that because they gave free labor and they was hurt.
The German government and industry did agree to pay reparations to slave laborers who survived World War II. And the U.S. did pay reparations to Japanese Americans interned during the war. Those payments ignited a spark among African Americans. But Glenn Lowry, the director of Boston University's Institute on Race and Social Division, says reparations is the wrong word, the wrong idea.
This is not an undertaking, in my judgment, that can or should be formulated in this country in racial terms. When we get serious about doing something about poverty in the inner cities in this country, it will be because we as a nation are committed to doing it for all Americans.
Our communities are devastated because you still see the residual of slavery. And then you look at the disparity in the school system and you see how bad our schools are, and we're still struggling. And every other ethnic group is able to amass wealth and to get an economic base, but black folks. And that goes right back to slavery.
Most blacks are not poor in our country.
Walter Williams is a conservative columnist who is also a professor of economics at George Mason University. He says America has been the land of opportunity for blacks.
The greatest gains over some of the highest hurdles in the shortest period of time than any racial group in the history of mankind.
Surely you agree that slavery was just about the most dreadful kind of institution.
Yes.
And that people, your people, suffered intensely as a result.
I agree that slaves suffered intensely. But however, I believe that every single black living in the United States has personally benefited from the suffering of our ancestors. We have far greater freedoms than any African in Africa. And how did we get here? Well, it was through slavery.
And you should say they should count their blessings that they're in America. And
oh, yes.
That's an outrageous argument, in my opinion. This is what one says to an immigrant who washes up on one's shores from a leaky boat. You say, welcome to our great country, get to work. Where would you have been if we hadn't given you a chance? This is not what you say to the descendants of 6 or 8 or 10 generations of natives of the American soil.
What sort of message does this push for reparations send to Black Americans and white Americans?
Well, I'm not sure. But see, one of the things that I find disturbing about many of these demands, it kind of says that someone else determines your destiny. I find that offensive.
Is it perpetuating a kind of cult of victimhood?
Maybe so. I always tell people when they're down, I say, it might not be your fault that you're down, but it's your duty to get up. I mean, you can't help that you were born in a certain environment. You can't help that maybe you had the odds against you. But damn it, it's your duty to get up and try.
I'm just curious, is slavery something that you are conscious, or at least in your subconscious, pretty much all the time?
No, is the answer to that question. Or perhaps I'd put it this way. The fact that I descend from slaves has shaped my life in a profound way. But the injury of slavery does not throb. I don't feel the wound. What outrages me much more is to look across this great, rich country and to see in the center of our great cities people living in despair, people who are mostly Black and brown, living in conditions that are worse than you'd find in almost any other industrial advanced nation in the world.
He blames slavery and 100 years of government-sanctioned discrimination that followed. But if compensation is to be made, who would foot the bill?
What about those Americans who said, look, I came here in the 20s, or my forefathers came at the turn of the century, long after slavery. We never benefited, as you described, from slave owning or
well, first of all, nobody's suggesting that they are culpable or responsible. That's not.
But they are the taxpayers who are putting up the money.
When government incurs a debt or responsibility, government is obligated to honor that.
How much money are we talking about?
The estimates of unpaid slave wages would run anywhere from $1.4 trillion to $10 trillion. In wage discrimination alone, the cost of blacks from 1929 to 1969 is $1.6 trillion.
While many in the reparations movement want individual cash payments, Robinson and others suggest something different.
There would be support for education, dramatic intervention from birth through college for those who have been victimized and seem to be frozen at the bottom of American society. And that would be massive infusions of cash and capital, economic development in the Black community.
What do you think would be the effect within Black society if the government did pay billions upon billions upon billions in reparations?
It would have the same effect of the $5 trillion that have been spent since 1965 fighting the war on poverty. Many of the problems that the Black community face today, they're worse than they were in 1965. It matters illegitimacy, family breakdown, crime, et cetera, et cetera.
We're simply talking about giving people what is their due, without which they can never be successful. How can one expect a child going to a school that is under-equipped, poorly funded, to have any chance to compete with a child who has every opportunity to succeed in American society? If the game must be played, let it be played fairly. We're not doing that. We never have.
And you're suggesting that money is the answer? Money is the answer to everything?
Well, certainly, no, I didn't say that. Money is a major part of the answer. But the answer has to begin, and I think this is just as important as money. The answer must begin with an acceptance of responsibility for what happened.
But even that may be a long time coming, according to Congressman Tony Hall of Ohio. In 1997, he tried to get Congress to pass a one-sentence resolution apologizing for slavery.
I've never been part of an issue where I received so much hate mail in all my life.
From your own constituents?
From my own constituents and from people around the country.
Did any of your colleagues in the House say, look, just don't touch this one. This is just going to be too divisive, too hot to handle. You're just going to get into trouble with it.
Yeah, a lot of them did.
Hall's resolution never even reached a vote.
You think this apology will come anytime soon?
I think that it probably won't pass while I'm in Congress. I think it's going to be a long time.
What I really don't quite get is why those words are so hard to utter in this House.
It shows that this very simple gesture, it shows there's a lot of hate in the country, there's a lot of discrimination.
We say to other countries around the world all the time that you must have the courage to revisit your past and to make right the misdeeds of that past. But we are unwilling to do it ourselves.
Don't you think the issue is very interesting, but it really is pie in the sky?
You do a thing because it is the right thing to do. And if you do it long enough, well enough, and if it is right, ultimately you will prevail. We will prevail on this issue as we have on other great human rights issues because it is right.